time, it was like the best content, digital content around. It was incredible. Welcome to utilizing YouTube as an online video platform. My name is Paul Cantonis. I'm the General Manager of Magna Media Originals and the Chairman of the International Academy of Web Television. We're very fortunate to have Dan Rayburn with us. Everyone, Dan Rayburn from Streaming Media. Hello, Dan. Yes, excellent. He's a good man. He does a lot of good work. So before we get started, I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves so you get a sense of who they are and what they're going to be bringing to our discussion today, starting with the lovely Rob Sandy to my left.
Out of college, about 6 or 7 years ago, I started a company called Vidler, a little mini Bright Cove or Uyala, servicing Gawker, AOL, Sony PlayStation. Grew that to about 20 employees and decided that the world was turning towards YouTube and started a company out of San Francisco about a year ago called vidIQ. We help brands maximize presence.
Tried to tell you.
Sure, just make a mess and leave.
Do disaster recovery, like.
It's not.
So we'll help brands maximize YouTube, get more views, more subscribers.
Good.
That's what I got.
Thank you, Rob. Vanessa?
Hi, so about the same time that Rob was doing Vidler, I was at a company called Next New Networks, so this was back in 2007. There I was the VP of Audience Development and Strategic Partnerships, and basically what we did was produced a lot of owned and operated content, primarily distributed on YouTube, as well as a host of other sites. And was there and kind of was looking after the audience development of these properties, not just our own, but we worked with about 100 different YouTube creators. We grew those properties collectively to about 2 billion views at the time of our acquisition by YouTube, which was in March of 2011. Now on the inside of YouTube, my job is essentially to help a lot of our content partners who are building channels on YouTube, providing regular content, helping them build sustainable audiences. So we do that in a number of ways, but primarily understanding what are the best practices of how to utilize the platform so that they can get their story or brand across. And in that role, we also produce something called the Playbook, which is our guide to how YouTube works and how you can build an audience.
And what version of that playbook are we up to?
3.
Excellent. Yeah. And talking about books, we now have newly minted author Avi.
Yes, so I'm Avi Savar. I'm the founder and chief creative officer of Big Fuel, which is a social media branded content agency. And as Paul said, I'm actually a newly anointed author. My book, Content to Commerce, came out this week. I've been working in, thank you, I've been working in branded content for the better part of a decade now. I was the chairman of the first ever, the inaugural branded content and entertainment jury at Cannes last year. I started Big Fuel in 2004. Before that, in my previous life, I was a TV producer. I used to run series and specials for VH1, entertainment producer at Good Morning America. And really over the last decade have worked with brands trying to connect content and commerce together in engaging ways for consumers, and that's actually the title of the book. It's called Content to Commerce.
And as the bookend, we have the younger, more handsome Paul.
My name is Paul Cooney. I work for AOL with the AOL On Network folks. My job is to work with all of AOL's properties and bring some of the best practices, lessons learned in some cases, to managing those channels. And much like Vanessa was describing, work with them to develop audience, sustainable viewership, views, revenue, engagement, all the other things that come along with it. AOL, of course, has a very diverse portfolio of brands, from tech to entertainment, to news. It's all across the board. So I'm in the fortunate position of getting to work with a lot of different kinds of content, understand how it's performing, how people are interacting with it, and then go back to those teams and make suggestions for improvement of how to better their content, both on YouTube and off.
Okay. So everyone here on the panel recognize that YouTube is the dominant channel-based video platform out there. Most recent numbers are 100 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. So if anyone questions whether or not there's a lot of content on there and continuing to grow, those are some of the numbers that really point that. One of the things we all talked about was getting a good understanding of how to address this question for you guys. So we want to get a quick show of hands, understand who's on the advertiser side, the brand side, considering YouTube as a platform. Put your hand down quick. Okay, good. You don't want to let people know where you are. You just move around. And then who's on the other side? Oh, the content creator side. Okay, so we got definitely a heavy skew towards the content creation. And then who's on the technology, maybe thinking about evaluating CDNs and IT side of the business? Okay, so we are going to be focusing on YouTube as a platform for video for content, skewing a little bit more towards content creators than directly for brands. We are not going to get into the real technical side of using it as a video platform. So we're not going to talk about bit rates per second. We're not going to talk about it from that perspective or directly what is the cost of uploading a video. We're going to discuss it on a much broader sense because we all feel that using YouTube as a video platform is a much broader commitment to it as a social platform, as a distribution platform, as well as a monetization platform, which is unlike other video platforms that you could go to. So with that being said, let's talk about that 100 hours a minute showing up on YouTube. So somebody is making the consideration of using YouTube as a platform for their content, knowing that that's how much content's there. Where do you start? Where's that first place that you start engaging with YouTube? Vanessa, I'm looking right at you.
Once you're already on, so like once you've created the content and assuming it's great content, which I'm sure you guys all know how to produce good content, it's really a matter of thinking, where does the audience reside? We've got 1 billion users on YouTube that come to the platform on a monthly basis. And they're watching a variety of content. So once you've kind of defined your value proposition from a content point of view, what are the things that you can do to aid your discoverability amongst the 100 million uploads per hour that we're seeing? So for me, I really think about it in a couple of ways. One, making sure that you're really optimizing for the platform, right? So if you think about YouTube, not only is it the second largest search engine in the world, it's also a massive social network. So if you think about it in those terms, how are you optimizing in terms of all the metadata to make your content discoverable, and also how are you formatting the content itself so that it really engages with an audience? If it's a social platform, people are really taking advantage of all the ways that they can share content, so you've got to ask yourself, is my content shareable? So that's on a kind of tactical basis, and then strategically, there are a couple of other things that you should be thinking of. And for audience development, we don't think about just what are the one-hit wonders that you guys can create and viral successes, but more about building in that sustainability. So thinking about building loyalty, and that's the second thing that I would kind of stress for a lot of the content creators is, are you getting folks to not just watch one video, but multiple videos? And you do that by way of getting them to subscribe to your content, right? So we see a lot of subscribers actually consuming 50% more than the regular user on YouTube. So how do you get those guys to subscribe to your content? And again, it gets back to the value proposition of what you're putting out there.
All right, hold on one second before you keep going. Avi, Vanessa obviously gave us a tremendous number of wonderful points. The first one, she just went right past. Great content, you gotta have great content. You and I were just talking about content and getting back into the creation of content. How do you even start deciding what your content is? Some people will know what their content is. Some of you guys will have ideas, and some of you will say, well, I don't exactly know what my idea is, or what do I need to do differently for YouTube? That was the formatting thing in there. If you could touch upon that.
Yeah, so this is not specific to YouTube. This is just general, I guess, digital content packaging, right? I mean, back in the day, okay, so my previous life, I was a TV producer, right? And we used to package programming by finding the right director and the right best writer and the right cinematographer, and you packaged a show together or a piece of content or a series together by putting the right talent in place. That's not enough anymore, right? Modern day, today's version of packaging is I need the right influencer and I need the right publishing partner. And when you start to think about your preparation or your planning in terms of what content you're creating, it's not enough to have a great script anymore, right? Everybody's got a great script. You're talking about 100 minutes of, 100 hours every minute. You're competing with an incredible volume of noise. And the way that your content will rise to the top of that is through the right ecosystem of partners and kind of a cross-promoting network and a base of influence that you need to create as creators in order to allow your content to thrive online. And that's basically, that comes in preparation. I mean, some of the best performing pieces of content that we've had at Big Fuel have come from the broader network, and I'll give you a primary example. Okay, so we did a series recently for our client T-Mobile. Okay, it was called Life Without Limits, and we featured 4 different characters, each showing the bounds of their life and how they do great things and they're untethered by technology and whatnot. The best performing piece of content in that 4-episode series, we featured a surfer, okay, big wave surfer, and had we just created that piece of content, uploaded it to T-Mobile's YouTube page and maybe done some stuff around it, we estimated probably about 3-4 million views would have come out of that, okay? The fact of the matter is, before we shot a frame of video, we talked to Jamie Sterling's the big wave surfer guy. We talked to Jamie's co-sponsors. We talked to Red Bull. We talked to Tiva. We talked to Lululemon. These are all people within the sphere of influence that individual character had. And before we shot a frame of video, before we scripted anything, we figured, how can we pull these people into the content at no cost, right? Hey, you're working with Red Bull, great. Let's use the Red Bull surfboard as a thing that he uses in the video. And now Red Bull's got incentive to put it on their channels at no cost to us. And so we were able to take what would have been 4 million views and turn it into 24 million views across a broader network just through the right packaging. Right? And that's about leveraging partnerships and influencers and creating a halo around your content that has absolutely nothing to do with story. I mean, it does to some degree because you have to do it organically and you have to tell really compelling stories. And we couldn't turn it into a commercial for Red Bull and Lululemon. But having these people within the framework of our broader network allowed us to get much greater reach. And paid media always helps too. But,
So, Paul, listening to that for a second, you guys at AOL are, you had an incredible new front with the original program that you launched, really fantastic stuff. You're one of the largest distributors, if not the largest distributor of content, right, including pushing content out to and distributing content onto YouTube. Mm-hmm. And this is content that is professionally produced content, right? What are some of the things you see from a content perspective with video using YouTube and doing the broader distribution that are some best practices that people really need to follow about their content?
I'd echo exactly just what Avi said of starting before the filming even begins. And it depends on what your goal is. If you're a brand like Engadget or TechCrunch who's doing a hands-on review or a product review, I would put that in a different sphere than Nicole Richie's latest series talking about her tweets, for example. It's entirely different content. So depending on where your starting point is, you kind of have to gear for that audience. I think pulling in influencers is paramount. If you're doing a Huffington Post science series, for example, you need to be speaking with Vsauce or Minute Physics or some of these other YouTube stars who have influence in that space that you can pull in and maybe have them appear on your show and have them show up and do a little bit of a guest interlude, or maybe it's just through a hangout bit that you film before you actually produce your post and put it up. I mean, just think of when you're watching your favorite TV show and you see an actor or a big name that you know and you recognize and you love in a show that you're already watching. It's exciting. It draws you in that much more, and you tell everyone around, like, oh, you recognize this guy from that movie, and here he is, look what he's doing. So I think incorporating all of those things for AOL is hugely important. And again, it just depends on what direction you're going, if it's this premium scripted, unscripted, or more hands-on stuff.
Right. Rob, you heard about the content. We're hearing about content being shareable, building loyalty. Vanessa threw out subscriber data, the idea of developing your audience. YouTube is such a platform for putting out content there so it gets discovered and actually building your audience and having a direct relationship to your audience. At the end of the day, what are the most important metrics that you should be looking at, and that somebody who's getting started on YouTube and using it as a video platform should be looking at, okay, these are the things I should be tracking daily, maybe these are things I should be tracking weekly, this is what I should be tracking monthly. Why don't you give people a good sense of that?
Yeah, no, so from a high level, I think we're looking at YouTube as the third largest social network right now. It's not just a video platform, it's heavily involved in the social networking category. And when you look at it from that angle, you know, and I just got done talking, I was talking to the Home Depot brand manager, and he was just like, what do you find more valuable, a Facebook like or a Facebook fan or a YouTube subscriber? And like without hesitation, he didn't even like flinch, he's like, YouTube subscriber. You know, because this is someone that's going to be engaged with my channel, with my social presence on an ongoing basis. And so for those, if you're, you know, on YouTube, you know, looking at your subscribers, looking at, you know, I think Vanessa will beat this to a pulp, you know, watch time, how much you're able to connect with that audience, and that means creating high quality, engaging content. And it's not just watch time across one video, it's across multiple videos. So if you have, you know, if you're sharing something, don't just share one video, share a playlist. And, you know, you know, and one thing from a statistical perspective, having done a lot of big data on all of this, you know, the number one and number two driver of traffic on YouTube, search and related videos, right? So you really got to think how you're optimizing for those two ways of gaining traffic on YouTube.
Okay. You know, one of the things that we're seeing is that more and more content creators and brands are considering YouTube as their primary home for their content, right, and building an audience on there. But we do also have obviously a lot of people who are building their own sites. So how does that relationship work between the audience that you're building and curating on YouTube and the audience that you're building and trying to get going on your own .com? And are you using the same player? Can we just embed all over the place? What are some of the challenges there, risks? You know, let's go into those. Paul, if you want to start, and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, sure. So I think that we kind of embody that challenge because AOL has their own video player, their own platform. And if we're going to get a view, it's going to be on that platform as opposed to YouTube. But that said, we understand that YouTube has a lot of tools built around community, built around engagement, interaction, at a level that you just can't really find on another platform, which is why we have a presence there. I wouldn't say that it's kind of one or the other. I think that from a brand perspective, you have to use both. You have to be in different places where people are consuming content. A majority of people, in my opinion, would key into YouTube if they're looking for a movie trail or something to that extent, and we're right there with a movie phone video for you guys, and we can tell you, hey, now that you're here, this is great, subscribe to our channel, but if you'd like showtimes for this movie, click on this link using an external annotation. It will kick you off to our .com site, where then you can go have an interactive experience there, consume more video, content, articles, photos, behind the scenes, whatever it is. So I think having both is
Paul, one quick second. You talked about an annotation.
Yep.
Can you explain what an annotation is? And can everybody who opens a YouTube account today and annotates their video, can they annotate it to their .com?
I don't believe so. I believe you have to be a partner, correct? You have to be a YouTube partner in order to use external annotations. It's a feature that's enabled through your account by uploading a HTML verification tag to the site that you want to link to, so you can only link to one site. I've seen people use it for selling merchandise, promoting whatever new series they have coming up, articles, like I said, with Movie Phone, new books, exactly. And the annotation itself is just, I'm sure you've seen them, just a small colorful overlay that can be in all sorts of different shapes and sizes and placements that will tell you to go do something, whether it's to subscribe, watch another video within the YouTube experience itself, or leave the site, stop watching video, and go read this article, or go click through this photo slideshow.
Got it. In 2012, based on data and findings from the International Academy of TV, we knew that about 20% or so of all the new web series were first launching on YouTube, and about 30% were launching with their own vanity URLs, their own .coms. How do you work between those two? What's the relation between those? And if I'm creating both, do I just take my YouTube player and drop it on my .com?
Yeah, okay, so this is a great question, okay, and I think it's a strategic question in terms of what your content is and what you want it to do and all that. I'm a big believer, and there's a whole section in my book all around channel architecture, okay? Channel architecture is critical in terms of building what I call like your network, your individual network. So you have your YouTube channel that serves a purpose, you have a Twitter channel that serves another purpose, you have a Facebook channel and that serves a different purpose. What tends to happen is most content creators or publishers or whatnot broadcast everything out to all channels at the same time, and it's the same message across all.
So you shouldn't be platform agnostic. You should be more
my
channel
belief,
specific.
My belief, yeah, is to be channel specific. So let's just say, hypothetically, you're creating a piece of content. You're leveraging YouTube as your platform to deliver the video. That video can and should live everywhere, right? I mean, most people don't actually consume video on YouTube. They're consuming it off channel. So the idea is to get that video in as many feeds of as many people as possible and get it shared and all that. But how you leverage all those other channels is as important. I mean, if you have characters in your program or in your content, Twitter should be a place where audiences can connect with those characters, as an example, okay? If you have other promotional materials or ancillary content, whatnot, drive people to Facebook to get other things from you. So each channel should effectively serve a purpose in driving the overall network forward and driving the overall kind of marketing plan. Right, I talked a minute ago about, be thoughtful about how you're packaging your content and what that marketing plan or push is. How you leverage those other channels is as important. We tend to actually have started to use Tumblr, believe it or not, as a hub of content because it's just so easy and it allows for lots of different types of content to come in and doesn't require us to build a microsite or whatnot. So different horses for different courses. YouTube is a great place to deliver and drive really great quality video, connecting from one episode to the next. Use features that are available within that platform to push out to other networks so that your audiences can connect with you in other ways, right? Video, as awesome as it is, and I love video more than any other medium, it still is relatively one way. You're creating a piece of content, you're putting it out in the world. How you create a network effect around that content comes from other mechanisms, right? You have to start to engage and build your channels and your audiences and your subscribers, and you do that not really on YouTube. You start to build a subscriber base, but what you want to be able to do is push those people through an architecture that makes sense for the type of content you're creating, and every series and every show and every program is slightly different. But I would leverage each of those channels for what their intended usage and purposes are, and I think that will start to drive value for the overall brand that you're trying to create for yourself.
Vanessa, in answering that question, do answer the question, if you can, of should I take my YouTube video and embed it on my .com?
I mean, personally, I think, and from experience when we were Next New Networks, we actually had our own .coms. We were trying to build these micro brands, these micro networks, and we thought it was really important to have a presence that was our own in terms of owned and operated. What we found very quickly was it's very hard to do two things. One, creating that great content, and also creating a great website. It's not an easy task, and you're also dividing your audience. I would, for the most part, recommend, unless you already have a .com that has a built-in audience and you're leveraging that, then great. But if you don't have one, don't start with that. Start with these other platforms first, where you can tap into the existing audiences. YouTube's got a great audience there. Leverage that. Build that, and then if you want, go on and extend your brand into some of the other platforms. But for us, we really saw putting all our energy into where the audience already resided really paid off for us.
Rob, in your response, can you address one more thing, which is I showed a video to somebody yesterday that I uploaded to my channel. It had 473 views. I was ashamed of it because it only had 473 views. And their response was, without me saying anything, was, wow, a lot of people watched your video. And I was like, what? Really? So give people a sense of, as they're doing this, as they're figuring out their channel strategy, their YouTube strategy, their .com strategy,
Yep.
What do these numbers look like?
Yeah, so I don't know about the specific number for a win. You talk clearly more than 476 views. But the bottom line is, if you have a Huffington Post or you have an Engadget.com, and again, all we do, we focus on analytics and we focus on YouTube SEO. And what we've learned is, if you're embedding your YouTube videos on your own website, YouTube, that's might not like me saying that, YouTube will use that as a signal, as a high quality signal that, hey, this is getting quality traffic. People are watching it on a high quality site like HuffingtonPost.com. This is going to show up on search and in related videos more frequently, and that's going to circle around and drive more traffic to your YouTube videos. So I really believe it's kind of a blended approach, and when you're looking at maximizing views, having a branded site and syndicating to branded sites, that YouTube video is an awesome strategy.
Got it. Do we need the actual response to that question about does anyone really want to hear the answer to embedding your YouTube video on your .com? Because you realize no one answered that question, right? And I don't know why did no one answer that question? Is there something wrong with that? Or?
I think yes. I mean, look.
Is it a good idea to do?
It's certainly not a bad idea.
Okay.
I mean, if you're choosing to build a .com and have your own domain and URL, there's no reason why you shouldn't. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are a brand and looking to drive views across different platforms like Hulu, YouTube, et cetera, because you have audiences in different places and you're spending money in different areas, it's a different story. But I think, for the typical content creator, there's no reason why you want to kind of dilute your views. Like you'll drive greater viewership around content that's singularly focused, and you'll have, as your views grow in one place, you'll get higher rankings, higher ratings. People will watch it more. People will share it more. It's funny. Paul mentioned a video that has 470 views. I can't tell you how many times that, like, when you're browsing, you see a video that has 470 views or four views, you actually won't even watch it, right? You just go, nobody likes that video. I'm going to move on to the next. And you look for videos that have higher view count. So the more you can push those view numbers up, the more people will actually watch your videos. So why not put all your eggs in a certain basket?
So when you embed it on your site, the views are going to show up on YouTube, right? In the numbers. Is it always a good strategy to leave those numbers on because you can turn them off, right? So you can hide your stats. Is there when people turn off their numbers, why do they do that? Why do they turn off their stats?
Because they only have 400 views.
They only have 400 views. Vanessa, is there ever a reason in the playbook where you say, now's a good time to hide your stats?
No.
No.
No, I mean, for us, it's all about being transparent, and part of the reason we have the playbook is to help others understand the best practices of other creators who have done really well on the platform. So we're all about open sourcing everything, and I would just recommend everybody to be as open and transparent, because I think when brands do things like turn off comments or turn off certain engagement features, you're just limiting the ability for that video to continue to spread.
Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about are misconceptions about using YouTube as an online video platform. Before we do that, I just want to let you know about 10 minutes we'll be taking questions, so that giving them a chance to think about their misconceptions. In 10 minutes, we will be doing questions with the audience. So, Rob Sandy, why don't you begin with misconceptions?
Around YouTube. So I'm just kind of rolling with the comment issue. We're again analyzing the data, and we found that brands that are engaging with the comments on YouTube, again, not turning them off, not saying I give up, like too many trolls that are saying first and cussing out the channel. And Paul, you're probably familiar with that. But if you stay engaged and you listen to that audience and you comment back and you reply, we found that the view count is on an average 4 times higher if you're engaged with that audience. And so from my belief, I think that's one of the, it's connecting with top influencers, it's embedding in the right places, but just having an open dialogue and treating YouTube like a social network and less like an online video platform will do you great good.
But wait a minute, Rob, is that just because to reply back, they got to go back on the video page and the video starts to play and so another view gets counted?
Yeah, I mean, the guy comes back and he watches the video and he has a higher odds that he might tweet or share it on Facebook because he's engaged with it. It's a whole slew of reasons, and sometimes these guys are heavy influencers. They have, like Smosh, who's got 8 million subscribers. If he comments, that goes to his YouTube feed. Meanwhile, that's going to drive like 40,000 views alone from him commenting on something. So it's all connected.
Right. 2 times you've heard people talk about influencers, and what they're talking about is people who have YouTube channels that have very large subscriber bases and millions of views. By getting them involved in your videos, as Vanessa can talk to about collaboration, you're hoping that some of their audience comes over to your channel and you can grow your audience that way. Vanessa, are there any misconceptions about collaboration?
About collaboration?
That you could think of?
Not that I think, I think there's certain folks who don't know how to strike that balance of, when to reach out to other YouTube's talent or stars to get them involved in the content and figuring out, ways to do that in the right way. And I think the main takeaway is just be authentic and find the right match for your content and audience. So, and I think it's been done in some really unique ways. We've seen great traditional media talent collaborating with YouTube talent and vice versa. And I think it's just really getting to understand, like, what is your content about? What's that right match in terms of an audience, and who else has that similar profile that you should be working with?
Yeah. Avi, general misconceptions about YouTube as a platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been said a little bit already, but I think the biggest misconception is that, if you upload it, people will come, right? And your content can be absolutely incredible. Some of the best content I've ever produced didn't get seen by anyone. And it's because of some of the stuff that we've been talking about. So I think that really understanding, we have a saying at Big Fuel, it's like success through other people's audiences. So how do you piggyback on other people's audiences? How do you get other folks to engage with your content and engage back with them? And that takes work. Like it takes a lot of work and effort to actually proactively engage and connect with people and kind of cross-promote content with each other. And so it's not an if you build it, they will come proposition. It's not great content begets views. It just doesn't work that way. You really have to earn those views in bigger, broader, more kind of marketing-driven initiatives. So I think, and that goes across the board. That's not just YouTube, but I mean, but that is the biggest misconception is that there's so many people on YouTube. If I upload my video, everybody's going to see it, and it's actually not the case. Because there is so much on YouTube, nobody's going to see it, right? Because there's so much noise. That's why everybody's like trying to trends. Everything is moving towards this kind of curation world where people are picking the best stuff and packaging it together. Because it's impossible to find the beautiful work. It's impossible to actually have the best work rise to the top now because there's just so much noise. 3 years ago, I could pretty much guarantee a video that we'd launch would get 1 million views. Now it's hard to get 1 million views.
A wise man once told me the average number of views per video on YouTube is 2.
Yeah.
You when you upload it, and then you to check it later to see how it did.
Yeah.
That's it. Paul, before you go to your misconceptions, one quick point, Avi. Is it better, and this is really for everyone to answer real quickly, what comes first? I've got all my videos, so I'm going to go open my YouTube channel now and start releasing videos, or does my channel come first? And now I'm going to start engaging with people while I'm making the videos and slowly build up a relationship in the community. What really comes first?
I wouldn't produce a frame of video until I know like who I'm talking to, how I'm going to package it, how I'm going to cast it. Like again, the traditional way of thinking about script writing is out the window, right? So think about the channel you're trying to build, the audiences you're trying to connect to, how you can leverage existing audiences that are around that to pull into your content, and then start writing.
Right.
So I think that comes first without a question, for me at least.
And Vanessa, you tell people to start up their channels first and start mixing around with everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I would reiterate a lot of what he said. It's really having that point of view of what you want that content and what you want your brand to be, and then figuring out once you've defined your audience, how do you then, to talk to that audience and build that audience. So it's very much a collaborative process and one that's continually evolving. I think we've seen really great stories of channels. Vice is a really good example where when Vice started, they were publishing their content, they weren't staying unique to their brand and their voice. And it was largely because they thought that only short form content would work online on YouTube. And so they started making these short clips and doing these things, and they really weren't seeing the audience resonate with the content. And as soon as they went back to their brand and their point of view and started producing longer form content and talking like 15, 20-minute clips, they started to really drive an engaged audience, and now that channel has more than 2 million subscribers. They're one of our top performers on the platform, and they're doing amazing stuff. So,
Got it. Paul, you want to wrap us up on the misconceptions?
Yeah, sure. Just quickly, I think that there's a misconception that a brand on YouTube is in somehow starkly it's a stark contrast between like a Phil DeFranco or someone else who's just in front of their webcam. I think that you have to view every channel as having a very well-defined creation story, whether it's for a Home Depot, a T-Mobile, an understanding of why you're doing this, what the strategy is going forward. Why, as a user, should I care about returning, care about subscribing, interacting with you? For a brand, I think that question is a little bit different because maybe it's I love your product. If it's a celebrity behind it, maybe it's I love who that person is, but I don't really care what they're talking about. I just like watching them talk about it. But I think the way that you approach putting branded content up and just uploading a video of yourself talking about whatever it is you're interested in are very similar. And I think people often separate those two to a larger extent than they really should.
Got it. We have time now available for questions. If we have the, yeah, please go right ahead. Use the microphone right there in the middle, please.
Okay.
And introduce yourself so we know.
Hello, Mike. There we go. Doug Thomas. I work at Office.com. So putting videos on YouTube for business, I run into folks that talk about firewall issues, which I guess deal not necessarily with content as much as streaming capabilities back at the office. So I didn't know if you had any numbers or trends of what you see on that, because every time we talk and put videos up there, their question is, I can't see it on YouTube from work.
So when you're in the office, the firewall prevents everyone from watching YouTube.
So anything we've seen with trends, that is that growing
shit
or
out
not
a lot.
growing? Or I mean, I know I have alternatives, but I'm wondering what the experts would think about that.
Right. I mean, my reaction, you guys please jump in, is like, businesses still do that?
Yeah,
Like,
that was what I was
still
thinking.
block. I don't know, what do you?
What business are you in?
Office.
Office.
Yeah,
So office. Okay.
So I'm actually familiar with this issue. I talk with a number of business brands that, especially if you're focusing on the finance vertical, like you're talking to Morgan Stanley or something, they're not allowing social networks or YouTube on inside of their corporate firewall. There's a number, you probably know of the solutions that can fail over when a YouTube embed does fail, and that's what when I talk with clients that have this issue, that have a percentage demographic there, that's what we typically suggest to them. It's a tough issue, but hopefully the Morgan Stanleys and the finance companies get a little bit more intelligent about what they firewall and what they don't.
Right. Next question. Wow. I don't know if that's good or bad, guys. One other thing I wanted to make sure we touched upon, this idea of content going viral. And people assume, oh, I'll make something really cool, I'll put it up there and it'll go viral. I think you touched a little bit about it, but the amount of content. What makes content go viral? What happens to a piece of content that somebody puts out there that goes big? What do you see happening?
I mean, I don't think anything goes viral. I mean, it used to. I think it's a lot harder today. I think that comes from some really smart planning, and again, going back to some of the stuff we were already talking about. Blind luck really is what makes something go viral. Striking the chord, like with the right cultural relevance at the right moment in time. It's impossible to time that. You used to be able to, kind of play it a little bit with like shock value and certain things, but you got to take that out of the equation for success. If you're hoping and betting on that, then best of luck. But I think the more you can take that off the table and plan for success, and know what you're trying to achieve. Like if you're thinking you're gonna upload something and you get 20 million views because you're the next Gangnam Style or whatever, it's honestly it's not going to happen. I mean, if you do, it is a miracle and awesome, and angels will sing. But you can't think that way.
One more thing to jump in here while we have the time still is monetization on YouTube. We didn't really dig too deep in that, and I think we should first hit into the new announcement about the subscriber channels. So Vanessa, if you can give like a 1-minute recap so then we can dig into it. What's the subscriber announcement?
So yeah, we just announced that we're now enabling content partners to launch paid channels. So we went out with a beta of around 30 or 50 channels. We just announced them. So you're essentially able to subscribe to these channels for a monthly subscription fee of whatever the content provider is essentially set. So maybe you're paying $2.99 a month or $7.99 a month. And we see this as an opportunity to get more content creators and more types of content on the platform. And it's a new initiative, so.
Got it. What do you guys think about that in relation to content on YouTube? Will people pay to subscribe to content channels? Avi.
You know, I'm fortunate that I tend to work mostly with brands who are not looking to.
All right, so you don't need to worry about it. Paul.
Right.
Paul,
So
give us an answer, because Avi had a funny look on your face.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think?
I personally, I think it's fantastic. I think the success of that model may be predicated upon finding content. We were talking about this in the earlier session, that the content has a narrow enough scope, and that it's something people are really interested in and very passionate about, and has a very clear voice and message. You know, if watching the coolest airplane landings of all time is your thing, and you want to pay $1 or $2 a month to see that, where else are you going to find it?
Right.
You know what I mean? And maybe you could search for it, but to have that in a daily feed sent right to your, your email on your phone, or whatever the case might be, however you're receiving it, is unique. So I think a lot of it has to do, my answer is, with the content itself.
Got it.
So I'll throw one thing in there, which I touched on briefly, which is that idea of curation, right? I think people will pay for the right type of curation. Again, if watching airplanes landing or crashing or whatever is your thing, and I spend 3 hours a day looking for that stuff. If I could pay $1 a month or $2 a month and have somebody do it for me and know that it's the best stuff, I think you will start to see trends that way. For me, though, I've always been a believer that
content is free, and people tend to not want to pay for it. Just
it's not
generally
really
free. It's ad support.
Yeah.
So it's
well, but if I'm paying $1 or $2 a month, I don't intend to see ads. And if I do see ads, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, of
So that being said, it's a fine line, right? Would I rather pay the $2 or $4 or whatever it might be, or would I rather see an ad in that curated piece of material? And I could make an argument for both, and I actually personally I believe users should have the choice. Because I do think, generally speaking, until we start to reprogram ourselves and audiences around the world, like, people just don't like to pay for content. Like, it's a sad thing, unless it's HBO and you're getting Game of Thrones and you know what you're paying for. And right now, when it comes to digital, I actually don't know, because there's so much crap out there that, like, what am I signing up for? I don't know what I'm signing up for. Netflix has kind of broken that to some degree, because, like, the content's good, it's a bank, now they're getting into the original game and starting to create some good stuff, similar to what HBO, so Netflix for me is like the new HBO, and there will definitely be a place for those kinds of companies. I think it's a lot harder to do for the lower tier stuff. But the idea of curation, ad-supported curation, I think is actually awesome.
Okay. So the other options for somebody uploading to YouTube is AdSense in their videos, right? The pre-rolls and the little banner ads and stuff on the page. Rob, are there some drivers of revenue that I think are very important, that when people are setting up their YouTube channel, activating the ads, that they really need to be paying attention to? So you're in your vidIQ dashboard, you're looking at all your data. What should you be looking at to really maximize the money side of things?
I would go a little bit more fundamental than that. A lot of what we've learned with YouTube is a lot of people turn off like pre-roll or TrueView, and I don't know if anyone's following the TrueView ad unit. It's been a fantastic ad unit, by the way. If you're spending money on YouTube, it's a great way to get traffic right now. It's equivalent of like Facebook 2007 and 2006 in terms of like the ROI on it right now. Just amazing value. But from a content creator's perspective, I think it's just fundamental to growing your audience. I don't, and making sure that the few default settings are on. I don't really have too much great advice on, how to, get people clicking more of your pre-rolls, or maybe doing custom content for your TrueView, or Vanessa probably has more insight to that than I do.
I mean, it's really just looking at the data. We actually provide a lot of data to content creators through their YouTube analytics. So you can see a great breakdown of how your videos are being monetized, whether it's through AdSense or more direct sold, and where that audience is kind of coming from. So you'll be able to see, are we selling that internationally or in the US? So there's some great reports that you can kind of look at. And from there, just monitor your trends. But certainly, having ads enabled with the new TrueView unit, we're seeing a lot of positive engagement around that from a user point of view, so I wouldn't be worried about ads turning away an audience.
Great. Final thoughts for the audience. Paul, do you want to go first for your final thought, final takeaway for the audience?
Well, if you guys are Nicole Richie fans, we have a new episode out.
It's actually really good.
Yeah, it's not
good
bad. I mean,
stuff.
she's kind of funny. Yeah, she's a little funny. No, I mean, just to echo what people have said here already today is you have to be very thoughtful with your YouTube strategy, and you really do have to align your other social platforms with YouTube. I often go to sites and it kind of gets under my skin when I see they have the bugs up, that's Twitter, Facebook, maybe Google+, and they don't have YouTube there. And for me, that just, I'm kind of like, well, what, why not? Why is it somewhere else? And then if I see a YouTube video that's been embedded in one of their posts, and they do have a channel, but they don't have a bug up there, then I further kind of wonder why not? And there's a lot of answers to that question, I'm sure. But I mean, you just have to be on YouTube, bottom line.
Makes sense.
Since most of the audience are content creators, I guess my final thought would be to them is you have to change your definition of what a producer is today and evolve your skill set to include marketing. I think that's, if there's anything that I could urge an up and coming content creator is to expand your skill set and think like a marketer.
I would iterate a little bit of that and just say, be your own focus group as well. So I often hear people saying, how do they discover my content on YouTube? How am I building an audience? And I'll check out their channel, I'll look at their videos, and I'll look at their titles and their thumbnails that they've uploaded, and they're not doing a great job marketing and packaging their content. And so really be your own focus group. If you're a beauty fan and you're producing how-to makeup videos, where would you necessarily look? How would you title your videos? What images would you want to see when people are searching in and the video stream comes up? Like, imagine yourself as a consumer, and because that's really the audience that you're talking to.
I would just say, having had a background in white label video hosting and now very focused on YouTube, think of where the world's heading in 5 years. What does YouTube turn into in 5 years? And it's something to think about is how hard it is to get a subscriber or to connect when someone's going to get infinitely more difficult as more and more content creators and higher quality content comes onto YouTube. So growing your subscriber base now, getting maximizing related and search is ever important now, because in 5 years, in my opinion, we're going to be sitting back on our couches, the majority of us watching YouTube, and there's going to be a whole slew of new engagement and whatnot that's going to make YouTube a really strong presence in our everyday life, more so than today.
And from my point of view, I think Rob said something very important that we didn't touch upon in depth is have a 5-year view. Right now, the audience does skew a little bit younger on YouTube. You do get a lot of people who comment and say, hey, I'm first commenter, you're a dick. Ugh. You get a lot of that going on there, but we are building this as a long-term platform. It is a place where audiences are. As Paul said, if you don't have that little YouTube symbol on your site, something's not right. People can pick up on that. So I think you need to take a long-term strategy on it, and you need to be there, and you need to be building your audience on there as well. So thank you, panelists, and thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thanks.